strategic planning session for 2026 for the town of Estes Park is now in session. There's my gavel. I'll turn it over to Town Administrator Mahalik.
Thanks, Mayor. So for those of you, you all have been through this process at least once, except for our new ELT members. The first strategic planning session is really focused on the town's mission, vision, outcome areas, and strategic policy statements. So this is really the policy direction heavy section of the strategic planning process. Between the end of this meeting and your next strategic planning session number 2, town staff will be creating goals and objectives that advance the outcome areas, mission, vision, and strategic policy statements that you set forward. Of course, town board members also have the opportunity to submit proposed objectives or goals during that time period as well. So we will be back at our second session to discuss more of the concrete action item level detail. Today is primarily focused on those higher level, policy level decisions, mission, vision, outcome areas, and the strategic policy statements. A brief introduction to how we're approaching 2026 from a town staff level. We've talked a number of times about not a slowdown, but a more intentional and deliberate creation of objectives and goals for next year. Not only to make sure that we have a manageable workload, but to make sure that we're not overwhelming the community with initiatives. As you all know, we'll be still in the midst of a development code rewrite, which is going to be a pretty significant public undertaking for the town. So in anticipation of that, we're not going to load up on things that require heavy, intense public engagement. The budget forecast for 2026 at this point is rough. We do expect to continue to see stability, at least absent actions out of our control at the federal level, and certainly with the economy. We'll be closely monitoring the receipts as we head deeper into this year with the uncertainty that we've seen. Congress still has not passed the budget yet. Some of those could have headwinds for us financially if the government shuts down and they're not able to come to a budget deal. So we are paying close attention to that, and as we get into our budget forecast, those may shift what we're able to accomplish in the 2026 strategic plan. So I wanted to put that little fiscal note in there before we jump into the meat of this. Any questions about the approach for strategic planning this year? All right, well, we will move to the review of the mission, vision, and key outcome areas. I did receive some feedback from the board. You all received an email today with that. That is also in front of you in written format. There was no written feedback delivered prior to 5 o'clock yesterday about the mission, vision, or outcome areas, nor was there, to my understanding, town clerk's office can verify any public comments submitted about the town's mission, vision, or outcome areas. But having said that, if there's any items to discuss in that arena, now would be the time.
It's been less than a year since we reviewed them for the 2025 because we started later in the year after the election and swearing in, I think. So those are pretty fresh, and if you didn't receive any feedback on it, then we're probably good to go.
All right, well, we can move directly into the strategic policy statements then. We'll start with exceptional community services. We did have a number of comments on this one. You have that summary sheet in front of you. Just for your reference, strategic policy, we tied each of these comments to which strategic policy statement they were talking about. So you see we have 3 comments on strategic policy statement number 1, which is we support a wide range of housing opportunities with a particular focus on workforce and attainable housing. So I suspect that there's some discussion to be had on that item.
I just wanted to, can I just start? No, okay. I just think in somewhere there we have to also add affordable workforce. Not necessarily attainable workforce, but affordable workforce. And I'm not necessarily saying affordable, but I am saying affordable workforce. Okay. Everybody knows what that means. Attainable does not necessarily mean affordable, and I don't necessarily mean affordable with people who aren't working in town, but for the town's sake to say affordable workforce, I think is important.
Are you
in affordable workforce?
I am.
I would also like to see something about our senior housing in there. Just put in there, affordable, attainable, workforce, senior housing. I think we need to address that. Our numbers in this town are senior driven, so I would think we'd want to have senior housing in there too.
The next item happens to be supporting the needs of the senior community. Could also reside there potentially.
But I think we're talking about how.
Affordable housing element to it, insofar as although it's not tied to the individual's actual income, it's tied to the amount paid for a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, etc. So I don't have any objection to affordable, but where are we going to go with that? That's the question I've got.
Right.
It's sort of like, I know Frank talked to me once about, well, maybe we should add a AMI limit on workforce housing, like we do attainable housing. I think that's a discussion we'll have to have, because that has implications that we may or may not want to do. I don't mind the term because I think it's right. I think the concept is we're not trying to find housing for the Elon Musks of the world.
I
just
agree.
a commentary.
I agree, but I do think because I guess one of the things is I would like us to discuss within before the next 2 years are up,
Right.
the definition of affordable. And so that's why I wanted it there, because I want that to be a big part of our discussion.
Sure.
Is affordable workforce.
If you decouple that, Mayor Pro Tem, particular focus on workforce, affordable, and attainable housing, including for our seniors.
Right, and I get that, and I guess the reason I wanted to couple it with workforce, just me personally, and this is like I said, just me personally, I don't necessarily want to focus on affordable and have people for the town to be encouraging people to come to town because we have affordable housing. I want to be able to have our people that are in our workforce have affordable housing, and there's a big difference there. And that just may be me. I have 6 other people that say, no, we want to have affordable for people to come affordable. I don't. I want to have affordable workforce. So that's why I wouldn't couple it, Mayor, but that's just my opinion.
I think some of this too, and Travis, you know how it all fits together, but some of these things might be kind of on a parking lot to be in the goals or the objectives area.
I think definitely the
We're going to go back and forth,
Right.
A lot, because when you get the housing is kind of the big one, and then specifics.
Yeah,
Because another one we haven't really addressed is seasonal housing, and that's been one area that's kind of been neglected, and I know that's an issue for like J1s and summer workers. And that's a different product,
Yeah.
and that we don't have a lot of either. But I'm thinking maybe some of these, we've got the big thing on housing, and some of the subcategories like for seniors and seasonal housing and stuff would fall into some of the others maybe, or a subcategory of the same thing underneath the general heading of housing.
I think if you keep it coupled, you have to keep the senior thing separately, which you could put in that second item or in goals and objectives, because otherwise it's going to get very clunky if you have to add yet another clause
Yeah.
about affordable housing for seniors too. So.
Well, I think one of the goals should be us defining it. In the same thing as Bill just said, I think one of our goals is honestly defining
What's affordable?
affordable housing.
There, how about that?
So I've to capture part of that, and I can probably find another color somehow.
Travis, I also jotted down, we support a wide range of attainable housing opportunities with a focus on affordable workforce, seasonal, and senior housing.
Can I add on to that too? I think there's a really, if we just leave workforce by itself, that is such right now a connotation, it creates confusion with workforce has been interpreted by the community. It's like, what's the spirit of what the community needs? They want workforce housing, which they think is affordable housing that they can afford if they work here. So if we continue to use workforce by itself, it's like we're just propagating that miscommunication down the road. We have acknowledged essentially that there is a miscommunication about what that means. So I think we have to take that away by itself, because I read that now. When I see workforce, I think market rate, regular housing, and that's not our responsibility as a town. The housing authority, the whole effort should be housing that will be helpful to the people that work here, to keep the community running. So I think we have to not use that by itself and go with affordable workforce housing. It's a completely different meaning.
And we have, I think that makes sense. We have an attainable housing definition in the code, which has traditionally been the income limited piece. And if we go away, or if we're bringing income limitations into the workforce housing, I think we can probably eliminate the attainable housing, because that confuses it even further. And that addition of language is, you sort of get into a semantic spiral.
Totally agree.
And if you just have affordable workforce housing and senior housing and then other housing opportunities, that strikes me as covering a pretty wide variety of bases.
You know, there is one issue that we will have to address as we get into this, and that is when you have workforce housing, you end up putting a deed restriction on your property, and it affects the marketability of the property going forward. And if we add affordable to a workforce housing, that adds one more restriction on workforce housing that may make it unlikely that a private developer will develop it, because the more restrictions there are on the deed, the more it's going to adversely affect the value.
Do you think this can be a spirit? This can be the focus of the town as a community is to provide that kind of housing, and then we'll let the housing authority work out the technical details of different levels of affordable with deed restrictions, without deed restrictions. But the spirit of the need is something we can afford to live in.
I guess my only point would be that maybe affordable is a totally different area than workforce. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's a limiter on workforce. You know, I would guess that we don't have any workforce housing that's suitable for someone in the workforce that earns more than 150% of AMI. You know, our workforce does not make more than 150%.
What's that number?
Well, it depends on the size of the family, but
For
a
one-
family of
for one
four would
person.
be 170-some thousand.
For the family.
Yeah.
You got a pretty good chance a lot of people aren't hitting that.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of think our workforce is within that 150%. Now, the other issue, though, is, you know, the ratio of your housing costs to your income. Because the way it works right now, it's a limit based on 150% of AMI. But if you earn 100% of AMI, that limit on housing costs will be higher than you probably can afford to pay. Because what you can afford to pay is going to be based on your income, not the 150% of AMI limit.
I would encourage everyone to read the excellent article that defines these three things by the current Estes Park standards.
The problem with that having deed restrictions, though, the deed restrictions are important, right? Because we're talking about, we have that they can do double density if they do workforce,
Right.
right? If there's no deed restrictions on them, they end up not being workforce.
Right.
So I think that, I mean, I guess maybe I misunderstood what you said, because
So what I was trying to say is the impact of these deed restrictions on the
I don't necessarily, as a town employee, I don't care about the marketability of property. Okay, we're talking about housing for our workforce, and I get what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing. I do think there is a thing about developers to be able to develop, and they have to have marketability. I
Right.
totally understand that. But if we're giving them double density, we're saying that so many have to be deed restricted. So if you take that off,
Oh, I'm not saying take off the deed restrictions.
okay, I thought you were. That's
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, good.
No. I think you need the deed restriction. If we're giving them that benefit,
Okay.
for sure.
I misunderstood.
I just don't think, I'm not sure I agree that we should add affordable to our workforce definition. We might have a separate thing for affordable housing, which, I'd buy that, but I'm not sure we really want to put affordable as a limitation on workforce because of, it's going to make developers less likely to apply for workforce, and therefore less supply of workforce housing.
And I guess my argument is the opposite of that. I think that we have attainable workforce housing at this point. We don't have affordable workhouse. And I don't want affordable without it being workforce. That's just me. And I don't want to say, oh, everybody come to Estes Park because we have affordable housing. I want to say, if you're contributing to our community, and that doesn't mean necessarily, I get it, there are volunteers that contribute totally. But as a town, when we're looking for the future of our town, I think that we have to connect affordable with workforce.
Well, then attainable is not connected to workforce at all in our definition. So maybe we don't want attainable,
Right, and I think that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
I think
agree.
workforce is entirely based on how many hours somebody works.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we want to get to closure today if we
Get
can.
number 2.
It's taking a long time.
All right, key out area 1.
I'll remind everybody, we had this same issue last year that in the first half hour, 45 minutes, we covered maybe 2 items, and I was a little bit frightened. But we did get through the entire agenda by the course of the day. But this is an important point.
Yeah, we don't spend a day on the mission statement. That's good.
And I do want to note that not only first draft, but also a lot of these items that we're talking about are delving into those actual action items where we're defining terms. And frankly, a lot of that will probably happen either in concert with the code rewrite or in the discussions that are kicking off with the Planning Commission next week on the 18th. So having kind of holding those and understanding that this is a broad strategic policy statement and can be altered, really at any time as the board's policy needs change. It's trying to get to what represents the broadest approach to housing that's most clear, not only to ourselves, but to the public about what we're intending to do.
Yeah, I'm just not sure I'm there yet to limit workforce housing to affordable, which is what this statement does. I think we are interested in affordable housing. I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm just not sure that leads us to the determination that we're going to limit workforce housing on an income basis. I mean, it's certainly up to the board.
It's not the final draft.
No, I get it.
Obviously, we'll put this down and we'll all have a chance to
Well,
review.
how about something along the lines, particularly focus on workforce housing and affordable housing?
Because I don't think we emphasize affordable housing. I think we emphasize affordable workforce. If you want to do affordable and keep the attainable, I'm okay with that. But I'm just a stickler on that. I don't think we emphasize just affordable. I just don't.
And workforce is misleading. Workforce has been perceived as affordable, and if we continue using that by itself, we're going to continue saying it's workforce.
I'm kind of hearing at least 3 trustees who are leaning toward the coupling. Any other on that consensus? And one who's leaning against that coupling, and
Well, I think, as it was pointed out earlier, I think it'll be defined as we go on, in the goals and such like that. If we find that not really doing what we want, we can always revisit that.
notice that it says with a particular focus on affordable
Yeah, it's
workforce
not the only
housing.
focus.
So it's not the only focus.
Yeah, that's fair.
There you go.
I like it this way. The only thing, and I'm not sure how to do this, is if there's any way we can expand it to the spectrum of workforce housing, so we don't have, or a broad spectrum of different workforce housing or something. So we've got the seasonal in there. I don't want to lose the seasonal. And the type of workforce housing isn't just the 2-bedroom, 2-bath house on a quarter-acre lot.
Oh, he had something.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Frank. And then in the goals, we can add something with the seasonal part of this.
Yeah, but somewhere we need to make sure that it's a whole spectrum of workforce housing is different depending on who the worker is, and we need to.
Yeah, I like it.
that.
We can't just be focused on the one little corner of it and ignore that other segment of the workforce.
I
How
agree.
about that?
And that may be coming in our definition of workforce.
Yeah, but I think that covers that. If people are comfortable with that, I like that.
Okay. Onward.
The only other specific comment we had on this one was on Strategic Policy Statement 9. It was pointed out that this is one of the only, if not the only place we refer to a specific department at the Strategic Policy Statement level, and a modification was offered that focuses more on history and less on the specific museum role in that.
I agree. I think take it out.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Any thoughts on the text of that language is on that sheet, Strategic Policy Statement number 9. The suggestion is we value and work to preserve, share, and respect the unique history of Estes Park and consider that history in our decision-making process.
Yeah,
okay with
just
that.
taking
Makes
museum
sense.
out, yeah, sure. We all know how to read between the
I
lines.
think that goes back to what the value is and not the how.
Yeah,
The museum is part of the how to do that.
Yeah.
yes.
I don't know why that keeps going away.
For anybody who has not been in one of these, they do go faster once we get going. Poor Chief Stewart's up there going, oh, this is gonna be a long day.
He doesn't.
Don't worry, I'll throw the same thing. So.
He doesn't complain.
No, he doesn't.
Work.
He's
He
pretty
just
solid.
gets the look on his face. He's now going to stare at you.
I know.
Yeah, just put the hand back in.
He's got a good look of Ruben. Ruben always looks like he's interested, but he really is. He looks that way.
Any other comments or questions on the exceptional community services? All right.
Before you go on, number 5, this is one of the things I'm sorry I didn't send anything in advance, but we expand and improve the durability, functionality, and efficiency of open space and public park infrastructure. Are we suggesting, based on that we expand the amount of open space or that we expand the amount of parks?
The expand doesn't relate to the space itself. Maybe expand is tough to have in that we improve the durability, functionality, and efficiency.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, that we
Continue
improve.
to improve.
I do think expansion was, when this first came out, expansion was part of that conversation.
No, I want to
The-
have that.
I think when this was added was in conjunction with the outdoor, open space and outdoor recreation master plan.
Yeah.
And then we do have the Parks Master Plan that'll come up this year.
In
But
that-
it doesn't necessarily, I mean, I see where you're coming from, that this appears to prejudge that we're going to do this.
Right, that's
And we
what-
sort of have that on the open space side. There's general areas that are focused on, but we don't quite have that yet on the public park side beyond some general
That
statements.
statement doesn't say you're expanding open space. It doesn't. It says you're expanding and improving the durability, functionality, and efficiency.
Oh, so I was reading it differently. I was reading, we expand and improve the durability, functionality, and
Yeah,
efficiency.
it's
In
just
that
vague
case,
as
I'd
a
change it
problem.
and say, we expand open space and public park infrastructure and improve the durability, functionality, and efficiency
Yep.
of it thereof. Make it clear.
Not to wordsmith too much, but maybe improve and maintain. Maintenance always gets forgotten in
Yeah, it does.
we want to add more and we want to do more.
Right.
Don't talk about maintaining it.
Here's one, sorry,
And I just want to clarify, in my mind, when you say public park infrastructure, that's always also going to include pocket parks, which I'm really for.
That's what specifically is what the expansion piece came in, is our discussion about that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that the pocket park is not lost in that thought process of a park. You know, people might not think of those small
Well, and I
parks.
definitely think that ends up in the goals too.
In the goals too. Okay.
Change of
It is, it was one of the objectives
eliminate
for
that whole ending
2025.
Unless that's too,
We tend to make these really long and then
Yeah.
take the of out. Unless that's too literary.
well, when you're on number 6, are we on number 6 or did you just go there accidentally? we should be committed to having an update comprehensive plan and development code because we don't have an up-to-date development code.
So the mayor brought this one up too, and the intent of that strategic policy statement is to be durable across 20 years. And that came through to drive the update of the development code. So that's not a goal, that is a goal and an objective. But this is saying that at the policy level, the board is committed to having an up-to-date comprehensive plan and development code that reflects the will of the community. And then we get there with our most recent code update. And
Okay.
then the second that that's approved, it will slowly start becoming out of date. And so that strategic policy statement would still be in there and would offer a trigger point in the future to say, look, we have a commitment to maintain an up-to-date comp plan and development code. We need to take another look at this.
So my question is, if we don't have the word committed on that one, why do we have the committed on number 7?
Yeah, we could add committed there.
I mean, we don't have to. I'm just saying if that's really the case, we shouldn't have committed anywhere or have it like everywhere.
I like that one and maybe drop it on the other one because the idea of these statements are to be kind of state of being statements. This is
Right.
what we do.
So the
And
next
then-
one would be we have.
I mean,
Right.
the whole point of the strategic plan is that we're committing to it.
Well, yeah,
So
it's
we can
a
call
little
it
redundant.
commitment.
If
That's
we're going to
what
put
I'm
it as one of our stated being a goals of goals, obviously we're committed to it.
So maybe we change this one to we
make-
prioritize community accessibility for residents.
Yes,
Yep,
that's
yep,
better.
that's
Yeah,
good.
that's
That's
much
a good
better.
name. Good word.
I wish that.
Does that mean
resonated.
we're not committed to the ones we don't state that on?
Right. So that's exactly my point. It's like why do we
We're
have that
committed
one,
to
not
these
the other
ones.
ones?
These ones we're
Those
not so
ones
much.
are not so important.
I think that's better. That fits that
Yeah.
state of being type. I don't know if that's the best wording for it, but
Anything else on this section? All right, moving to governmental services and internal support. Didn't receive any feedback on this one ahead of time, but now's the time if you have thoughts on this section.
When you have an elected board, well, the community decides what diversity to put on there.
Yeah, this one is.
That's a technicality, so I wouldn't change it. basically.
Well, and this one's referring to our boards and commissions.
Yeah.
So that's well, I mean, right now it could be we have the planning commission. It could be board and commissions because we only have one advisory board at the moment.
Number 8's a wordsmithing thing, but proactively make town information available to the public. Proactively making doesn't. I don't think that's.
Well, in parallel with maintaining, that's where he's got making.
Right.
It could be we operate with transparency by.
He's got
Yeah, I
these
think you still have to have the.
transitive verbs or
Oh.
whatever.
I wouldn't know what to call them.
Yes, it
Not an
just
English
doesn't.
major?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
It is a very long sentence.
I think a public information officer probably could reword that well.
I'm always happy to go back through and wordsmith, but want to make sure because
It does make a
some
difference.
particulars.
It seems like they're particular.
I think the
Yeah.
intent of what we're doing to us is there.
Yeah.
We don't need to do the grammar.
Agreed.
There's something wrong with that sentence, though. It just doesn't. We operate with transparency, maintaining open communication with all community members, and proactively making down. Yeah, I think saying "by" in there it would be good. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Number 8.
By maintaining?
Yeah,
Maybe we can just ask you to wordsmith it. So
and that's fine. But we miss
You
it
could do
sometimes
that.
by the time we
Eliminate
get done.
the comma and put
Yeah.
the word by in.
Yeah,
like I've said before, there's never been a book written of Pulitzer Prize that was written by a committee.
but and this is true. But it just does get missed year after year because
Yeah,
you can't look
it
at every
does.
word.
Still a long sentence, but that makes it read easier.
Yes, thank you.
And then I did go through, the mayor made a valid point, just add appointed to boards and commissions to make sure that people understand that we're not altering, only the electorate can alter the membership
Yeah.
of the elected body. Anything else on that one? Outstanding guest services.
There, let me ask you this: number 10, does that not repeat what we just talked about?
Oh, by maintaining?
Yeah. Does that?
It's a subset of that. I think we added this one specifically because of the need to have an accessible website, and the website being a key element of operating transparently. You could pull it into number 8 or delete it and still be captured under number 8.
It just seems like it's more the objectives, but
It does seem pretty specific.
I mean, it's not like I'm going to go home and not sleep for it, so it's okay.
Deja vu. I think we discussed this last time.
We
We
did.
did.
I think
Sure
the board.
did.
Yeah, the discussion then was similar to what you said. It's just a more specific.
Right, but yeah, I agree with you. But I think I was probably opposed to it in the first time.
I mean, for us, number 8 we assume includes maintaining an open, accessible website. I actually don't remember the conversation when we added this strategic policy statement. I don't know if anybody.
I think our website sucked. I did. I think it was really difficult to navigate it. I don't know I'm on microphone when I say that word, but it was really difficult to navigate it. And now it's gotten better, but I do think we maintain it. So I actually think it was a problem then. It's not as big a problem now, so that's why I would put it under 8. But like I said, I'm going to sleep either way. So
I will say that we are looking to start conversations about migrating away from the state portal website. It limits our ability to have really modern functionality. So if you go to our website, it's better than it was, but it's still pretty clunky, and it doesn't feel like if you go to, the typical town's website, they're much more responsive than what we're able to do with the current platform we have. And we've kept on with it because, frankly, it's a steal of a deal. I mean, it saves us a ton of money, but it does have significant limitations, and it does cost us money and staff time to maintain it and troubleshoot issues. So just for that reason, I might suggest we keep it on there because we'll likely be discussing what efficiencies and effectiveness we can gain in the website by evaluating more closely how we're approaching that as a communication tool.
okay.
And later in the process, we can talk it again if we feel we need to. Okay.
Outstanding guest services. We had a number of comments here, starting with number 2. A discussion about wanting to evaluate or consider how events meet and fit with the community brand, and wondering if we want to add a descriptor after high quality.
What descriptor?
I felt that we needed to have diverse in there somewhere because we're not just. I've had people come up to me and say, why are we always doing events that have alcohol? Why are we always doing events that center around animals? So that's why I was thinking diversity, to be able to have a wide, high quality, diverse events is what I was simplifying it as. Because I think we do get kind of focused in those 2 areas quite heavily.
Because what else is there?
Dia de los Muertos.
Can't just put
I think
tracking
that's
on
good.
this and have it redline it.
I don't know if it will.
Maybe it's a spreadsheet rather than a Word document.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it in Excel. It'd be under review. No, I guess not. Okay. Anyway, onward.
I don't think there's track changes in the spreadsheet.
But then how do you quantify that? How do you say we've met that goal? What's that mean? What's diverse selection? What is?
It was high quality.
Yeah, I think the market's going to change every year, and
If we don't
I
change
agree.
our events, I mean,
I agree. We should
continue
not
to
have
have
every event should not have alcohol. We should have a broad range of events. Animals are okay; they draw the people, but I think the market's going to change every year, and the events department has the charge of attracting high quality events. They can't all be dog shows. But how do you say that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It can't all be dog shows. It can't all be horse shows. It can't all
But
be
what if they are world dog shows? If they're
whatever.
world,
There
you know.
isn't. There is more than that out there, and we need to
Yeah, I agree. I
to
agree.
look at that and have. I mean, it comes back to I mean, what facilities do we have that can accommodate or attract different, diverse events?
Well, you added the First Peoples Festival last year.
Right, and we have craft
Good
festivals,
example.
and
Right.
we have Frozen Dead Guy Days, which has nothing to do with
That's
Alcohol.
alcohol. There's cheerleading and
diverse.
Well,
there's
how would you
Dia
describe
de
that? Yeah, how would you
los
describe
Muertos
that
and-
range?
we have
of-
cheerleading.
That's
Yeah.
Oh, that could be.
There's baseball. There could be dance. There could be. I mean, there's a whole gamut that
How do
we
you
are.
say that in the
We
strategic
don't
plan?
know of because we don't have
Yeah, I
maybe
agree.
the facility or area to host those.
I mean, I think it's what's relevant or with the value. I mean, is there a value to the town? As far as high quality, does it add value to the town? Is it relevant?
Well, to attract guests and add value to the town.
One of our goals to be is to attract diverse events and audiences.
Where's that goal?
It's in the next section that we do.
Yeah, for
Next
So,
time.
so I think that would be an appropriate place for that, by keeping this broad and then whittling it down to say, we need a range.
One of the goals underneath that is to have diverse events
That is already a goal.
on the next. Yeah, so that does kind of make
Okay.
sense.
My comment was a little. I'm the one who submitted the comment about some sort of like having it fit with the community brand, because this is a topic of conversation that's come up several times on this board in the previous iterations. Is how do we say, especially in particular when it comes to the Baum Park decisions or things like that, a conversation of what fits in with like the Estes Park experience and brand, and a lot of that goes to staff, which they do a remarkable job of making sure that we have enough of in each of those areas with the nod to the diversity piece. But I think it seems like we come up against this conversation a lot about, or a lot's probably being generous, but frequently about how does this event fit within the mold of what we want the Estes Park experience to be. So that was my intent and my comment. I don't know how, if we want to put that, on brand, that could be open to perception, different kinds of perceptions. But I think it's just something that I've seen that we've kind of just taken on an individual basis when we talk about it at the dais versus the board collectively deciding strategically what kind of events we want to make part of the town-owned experience.
Well, and then how do you say, you have to define that so well, so you can disqualify people who don't have the right event for our brand, so how do you define that?
Well, I think that's where we leave it open to interpretation for staff. But I think the idea, right, is that similar to how we might need to define affordable. Maybe we're defining what brand means. But I'm not saying the board decides every event that comes to town. I think I'm saying, can we give better strategic direction to staff on what we believe the community wants to see in our event slate? If we feel like that's necessary, maybe we don't. Maybe high quality is enough.
Until an event occurs
And
and
then
20
get mad
people
about
call
it.
in an
Yeah,
hour and say,
exactly.
why?
Why are you doing that?
Everything is alcohol.
I see what you're saying though, because we
See what I'm saying?
push more events, but we also don't want him like, okay, well, the Satan group is coming to worship, for
Yeah.
6,000 people.
Rob,
It's an event.
cancel that one.
yeah, not a problem.
That's a joke.
No, it's not really a joke because it makes a point though. I mean, I agree with what you're saying is there has to be some overall, and I think we've always gone off of, common sense.
Right.
But as a board, we do need to kind of define.
We went through this with that road rally issue
Yeah.
a couple years ago with the blocking roads, disturbing wildlife, making a lot of noise. I mean, it was a diverse event and it was probably high quality. It just didn't fit our community.
Right.
So I think that brand and events that fit our community, the extreme would be the Satan worship. So, but that's
Well, that
legitimate
might fit
example.
some members of our community, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Right.
does.
it
But
could.
but if that doesn't fit
Right.
our image or the brand that we want to
Yeah.
show,
Travis is dying over here.
Dan's gonna
Brand-
come through.
Okay, we're not saying
Yeah,
religion.
the challenge there, you very quickly get into First Amendment challenges, and I think that's what Dan
Yes.
is coming up. So we would want a much broader conversation about that, probably at a tactical level, if we're going to establish a community brand that's driving how we can drive how we chase events, but it's much more difficult with the protections for free speech in our country to restrict who can rent space.
So that's what I wanted to say too. Like what we're talking about with dog shows and cheerleading competitions is different than Frozen Dead Guy Days and Ski Tour. Like we're talking use of a facility versus like a marketing effort to
Right.
attract people
Yeah.
to have an experience. And I think the word brand becomes a little nebulous, especially for people who maybe don't like spend a lot of time in that world. People get nervous about using brand and community in the same conversation, but I think part of it, the reason, and I didn't want to get too far into the weeds here, but the tourism master plan that Visit Estes Park is going to be working on, I assume Rob and his team will be a big part of that. That's where my brain is going, is how can we tie those two things together in terms of what they're promising as an experience and and I know a lot of that work happens already, but if we're thinking strategically with what this board directs Rob and his team to do.
I think that
be a Travis.
differentiation between what we provide and support versus what people are allowed to do in our facilities is different. I'm looking at our attorney here, but if somebody wants to rent out the event
Right.
center
Yeah.
for something, that's a whole different deal. But we don't have to sponsor it. We don't have to put money into it.
And we don't have to go out looking for it. That would
No,
be a
and we don't have to recruit it. And the car rally is one that's a little less
right.
controversial. I don't think having allowed car is free speech, but it just didn't fit the character of Estes Park, so we didn't support it. We didn't go through with it, and they needed us to support it to be on the streets. But if somebody wants to do something else within the event center, and it's not,
Right.
we can distance ourselves from that.
One of my objectives for 2025 is to develop a guiding philosophy for events that includes consideration of impact on businesses and the community. I don't have that yet, but but that is one of my objectives for this year.
It looks like our mission would help us define what our brand is, and I knew there was something that would tie in there closer. I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. The mission is to provide high-quality, reliable service, benefit of our citizens, guests, employees, while being good stewards of public resources and our natural setting. And that would be a winning strategy to identify a brand, I think, with some of the folks who are pro-environment, who are about preserving the community for the sanity and sanctity of the residents. I think that, we might have some terms in our mission to identify that brand and to give us without affecting anyone's First Amendment, without talking about a specific group. I think that's how we could identify our brand for events. Events that support our mission. It could be that easy. And then it gives you some parameters,
mission. I
and it
think
gives you some direction. Yep, I'm not going to even give an example of a bad one.
Well, and I like that because if you said number 2, we provide support a diverse selection of high quality events that attract guests to their town and support our mission, or in that sense, maybe not
Public
those words.
resources and our natural setting, I think, is key. It's why people come here and what kind of event they would expect.
So it kind of makes the brand and it kind of brings the mission together.
Which is why something like the car rally didn't fit,
Right.
because it doesn't fit our the noise
Yeah,
and
when
the
you were saying how
pollution.
it all came together. Good luck with that.
So do we want to add a modifier at the end there, and
And mission.
Tie it in with the mission, or would be easier than repeating all of this.
Compatible with our mission or something.
Very good, Mark. I knew I sat next to you for a reason.
Good.
You didn't choose.
Oh, good point. I didn't choose.
are we comfortable with that, knowing that Rob will be working on that sort of brand document that Trustee Hazelton alluded to this year, and that the board will have a forum for that discussion?
Okay.
I like want to keep us on the high level. So yeah, I think good moving. Let's just move forward. Conceptually, it's there, right? No. It's not that I dislike it. I just don't want us to get stuck on any words.
We're doing well, actually, compared to last year.
Yeah, we're faster this time.
Wait till it changes boards again.
I guess maybe what we can do is we can agree if somebody has some wordsmithing they'd like to do on one that they feel strongly about, do it later and just submit
Exactly.
it in writing. So we don't do it as a team, but
Thank you.
still take advantage of your thoughts and where we're there.
Yeah, if we
That
get
sounds like a
stuck
great
on
plan.
And I can green line those so that you all see those changes between
Yeah.
now and next time.
That's fine. Although sometimes wordsmithing actually is what you're thinking. Wordsmithing in some ways makes a difference. So
Yeah, if it
That's why it has to
alters
be
the meaning,
still reviewed.
Words are very
we can
powerful.
do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's hard to wordsmith without impacting the meaning of the
Right.
strategic policy statement. So it's almost better to spend more time now and get that wording right. The objectives and the goals can be wordsmithed much easier without consequence than the strategic policy statements can. We did have some feedback on item 3 to remove the last section and our key outcome areas.
I thought it was vague unless it's defined in the goals or objectives, and maybe it is. I suggested ending it at after residents. We strive to balance the impacts of visitation with the needs and quality life of our residents. But then when you added NRQ outcome areas, I was like, well, what's
That
that?
seems kind of
Yeah,
circular.
So maybe we don't care about residents after all. I agree with you that
Yeah.
makes sense to take that out.
I like it when we can shorten them, make them more succinct.
This is not your computer set. Strategic policy statement number 4. We haven't.
Before he reads this, everybody will know who this came from, and I know what I will hear after this, but go ahead, read it.
So the comment is that there's a preference for data advised over data driven. It's important to be able to interject that part that the data can't provide, which is human judgment. So we have a number of places throughout the strategic policy statements where we use the term data driven, and I believe this comment would prefer data advised.
We talked about this extensively last year. The consensus was certainly against me, and we stuck with data-driven. I have 4 years in office. Unless I'm recalled, you will hear from me every year on this, because if you just use it from data-driven, you know, I've been working in business for almost 50 years, and sometimes that means people don't use some human sense to bring to the data also.
But I think that's exactly what that statement says. We balance data decisions with community values. It's saying we aren't just data different.
Hey,
We
wait
balance
till
them.
the next two that
We
come
balance,
up
but
too.
on this one,
I just wanted to launch it on this one.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, data driven is kind of a accepted term of art.
You solved this one. I'll stick with balance, and I'll agree with you. But when we come to
Maybe
the
not
next
on the
two,
next
I
one.
think maybe it's not quite
Okay.
as balanced.
Philosophically,
Get your
Mayor,
arsenal
you're
ready,
right. You are right, and you're there. It is a part of the puzzle.
I'll just sit here and
Data
watch.
driven is not because the data says this. We are going to do this. It's got to be a piece of the equation and not the entire reason.
So balance
Yeah,
solves
I
that
completely
problem.
agree with you on that,
Yeah.
that sentiment.
I suspect that one will come up without the balance modifier
We'll see.
in 20 minutes or so.
Possible.
It's possible. The last one in this section was sort of a reflection of the comment about the museum. Was, do we need this to be solely for the visitor services division, or should we just contribute to an exceptional guest experience and leave it at that?
Well, the whole section is about an exceptional experience, so we either take it out altogether since it's all in the whole section, or focus it, I think.
I guess I put that one down as a guidance to staff. I would rather see we contributed exceptional guest experience through high quality visitor services in all our departments.
Maybe we just leave it after visitor services and don't capitalize it, so it's not a specific department.
And take out the division.
The guy that does
Because
the
I think
trash
it's important for
cans,
all our departments to look at visitor
He-
services,
and he
not
is
just
in.
visitors.
he does that to provide a better experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's really a authentic way to say that this whole town is committed to.
Yeah, it has to be every department, not just that
And
one
I would
division.
add resident, but
Well,
guest
why wouldn't we just
experience.
put it in number one? We value broad collaboration, providing outstanding guest and visitor services.
It works.
I mean, the number one and number five are the same thing.
Yeah.
So and this is a more technical, number one is really oriented at our partnerships. Number 5 is where we capture all the visitor services or visitor impacting specific goals and objectives. So not that we can't connect those to these other items, but the visitor services division and what they do, we like to make sure that there's something to tie back to in that.
But aren't we valuing the broad collaboration to contribute to an exceptional guest services? I mean, just it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Go ahead.
What about taking through and just exceptional guest services through high quality services?
Exceptional guest
Just
experiences.
experience.
How about-
We can keep it
Through
separate.
a high quality service.
What if we say instead of we say all departments contribute to exceptional guests? All town departments.
Look at there's we on the beginning of every one of those.
Yeah, that's
true.
what we.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what we.
There's no I and
use.
we.
I think Cindy.
I just didn't want it limited to that one division.
We,
The public works needs to look at visitor service, high quality,
Yeah, but the-
utilities, all of them
Okay.
do.
But then we're still doing number one again. I understand what you're saying separately, but it's still number one. But in the long run, it really doesn't matter. But if we just take out the division and
but we're not.
I read
just
number one
talking
differently.
about
That's the
guest
town
services.
collaborating with other outside entities.
I have to agree with Frank.
that's okay. You can agree with Frank,
I'm going.
and I'm okay with it. Either way, I'm
One
okay.
is relationships.
I think we're going to
and
number
5
6.
is
I would take out
quality
division and
individual
just say in all town departments.
I guess if I'm having a difficulty issuing between the two, then anybody else reading is having a problem with the two, and that's I guess that's my issue.
If you just say services, though, it feels to me like it's just restating the policy
That's right.
statement above.
That's why I'm yes.
The overall one. So you don't need it at all.
That's what I was saying.
That's-
That
that's-
you should say in all town
That's,
departments.
sorry, the outcome area, yeah.
You could just clarify that number 1 is really related to partners. And number 5, you just ended after, well, you remove visitor and you ended after services.
Right, and that makes sense to me. But
Yeah.
Because we
Seems like it's
is
just
we is
restating
we.
the outcome area,
but I agree with you.
but I'm lowly staffed.
No, I agree with you, but that's okay. I'm losing this. I'm losing, but I'm losing with you. I'm going down with you. Okay, that.
We're on the ship together.
Yeah.
I agree with Kate. I think we need to explain number 1, have why,
That's right. That's right. I'll go to the ship with Jason.
Maybe with other stakeholders, maybe?
Okay.
Either way.
Yeah, either way, that does.
Okay, I like that better.
Other stakeholders, maybe?
I think partners is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, stakeholders is overdone. I like partners.
Stakeholders, isn't it clear?
Yeah.
No, I like stakeholders.
There's plenty.
We're gonna have
I actually really like this.
another
I like
4-3
I
vote here.
I just had to say that. Sorry.
So does that give us enough distinction
It does,
between
yes.
these two?
Trustee Snacks on.
Yeah.
I'm on
I
board.
heard her say yes.
I'm not sinking with Jason anymore. I'm on board.
She's abandoned Jason.
Any other comments on the outstanding guest services section? All right, public safety, health, and environment. Only one comment on this one, and it was about strategic policy statement number 4. And there was discussion the past year about, or actually almost 2 years ago now, about the sheriff's office doing police department patrol work as for our law enforcement patrol needs. At the time, the board was not interested in that, and that had come up before for the dispatch center. And after that saga, we added this strategic policy statement to reinforce the value of a local emergency communication center. And the question was, should we also add a similar statement about supporting and maintaining our own local law enforcement?
I think it was pretty clear the community wanted to do that way, so I think that makes sense. I have a question on 4. One of the things that I think we need to add to that, and maybe other places, is redundancy. You know, the issue of, you know, if we have a serious problem, you know, we work with others, and there's going to be, you know, another comment I'll have later about collaboration with other law enforcement and emergency services organizations. So those are, I guess those are two different things, but two things that I think we ought to incorporate in here somehow, that there's the redundancy for our, particularly the dispatch, but also, you know, collaboration with other law enforcement, not necessarily law enforcement, but emergency services groups. Because I know we do it. It's a definite, significant part of what we do, and I don't know if it's necessary to say, but I just think that that is part of what we think we have as a policy.
I think it's worthy. You know, I mean, yeah, the whole deal with Larimer County made it very evident.
We can support collaborative. Yeah, I agree with that.
Something like that for the redundancy piece. Chief Stewart can talk about all the redundancy we have built in both in dispatch and the law enforcement services, but I think the value statement makes sense.
Yeah, redundancy is safety nets.
It does support my position, but I think we've been trying to do so. I appreciate it.
Every time you have a redundancy, you have a safety net.
Yeah.
Well, I just wonder whether we need to add collaboration to it, though. The idea is that it's not just redundancy; it's coordination with other organizations.
Yeah, that's good.
I think if we add this one, we definitely will want to add a value statement reinforcing the support for a local law enforcement.
That's what, yes.
For sure.
But, I mean, we have on here that we support our victims and everything else. We have nowhere that we support our law enforcement.
Yeah, that's the one I actually wanted to see in this.
Yeah.
Municipal rather than local. Sheriff's office is local. I know. I want to say municipal.
Yeah, municipal.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Good job, Dan.
Hire Pinkerton.
That thwarts your long game, chief.
You don't even see the table. That's
You
not
have
fair.
to.
You got an
Not work
extra
for the
E in
sheriff's
the
office.
last enforcement.
An extra
Still
E
have
where?
enforcement
red
spelled
and
wrong.
enforcement.
There, there,
of the
right there.
administrator here.
Got an extra
Sorry,
E.
Enforcement.
can't let it go.
Enforcement.
Voice some more.
When we get done with that, I do have one that I would like to add. I'm sorry I didn't get it to you.
Yeah, 3. What's the origin of number 3? What's the objective of that?
So that one morphed from an objective that was very specific to the Victims' Right Act, and there was a desire to express that connection to that victims, the VRA specifically. This was well before Chief Stewart's time, and it sort of morphed over the years to ensure a focus on victims in criminal scenarios.
Feels like a way to meet an objective versus the objective all by itself. So it feels to me like it should be a different column, a lesser column to support one of the other objectives, but I'm not sure what the other objective would be in the strategic plan.
To me, it sort of falls under the we're committed to safeguarding the lives and property of the people we serve. This is a kind of a subset of that. Because of that commitment, we adhere to the Victims' Right Act, and we support victims of crime and disasters.
So you feel like it's appropriate here, or
I feel like
could fall
it
under
could.
number one?
Well, I think frankly, I think it could fall under number one and may be additional unnecessary detail unless Chief Stewart feels differently.
I think we can probably take it out. I think it's covered under number one.
Trying to streamline.
I think that all came after even the flood and everything, that
Yep,
we wanted to make sure
that
that,
has that.
Yep.
Several of these have that feeling. Like,
And I think
keeping this updated
that number
is-
one there does really
right.
he covers it.
capture a lot of that.
Okay.
I would like
Cindy?
to add something like this. So we don't have to go with the exact wording, but we recognize that use of illegal drugs in our community and schools is an ongoing issue and strive to work with local and regional partners to improve awareness, treatment, and education.
I like that. Do you
I
want me to read
might need,
that
I
again?
might need that a little slower, Trustee.
That's all right.
Let me get out of this. I need to find a better way to track changes here, because this is.
Because ROAC is, we're represented in ROAC,
Sure.
and our schools are working with them, and
So just for draft
so we
purposes.
recognize that use of illegal drugs in our community and schools is an ongoing issue, and strive to work with local and regional partners to improve awareness, treatment, and education.
You obviously took
Is this
hiking
the
in
right
school.
column? Is this more of an action?
Seems like it's, oh, I'm telling you.
They learn handwriting.
I guess I asked that too. It should be a sub of one of the others.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want this as a goal or an objective because it's very broad and it doesn't have concrete actionable steps.
I like it where it is.
No, I think it needs to be where it's at.
The only thing I'd say is let's maybe drop the strive to and just say we work with. I don't want us to just strive to it. I want us to do it.
We're going to try, but no promises. And work
Yeah,
with local regional
exactly.
promises.
Which we are doing.
That, I think the strive kind of weakens it a little bit.
I like it a lot.
It's also not just illegal drugs.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, that's true because
Yeah.
I guess marijuana's
You
legal
could add-
now.
You could
Maybe say
almost just say we
abusive-
recognize the ongoing drug crisis.
Abuse of drugs?
I think abuse is good because you're right.
Yeah.
It is abuse. It's not use of drugs. I mean,
Well, and it leads to the other.
Some of
and
it's
the other,
abuse
and-
of prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Substance abuse.
or the abuse of substances because mushrooms are not drugs.
We recognize the ongoing issue of substance abuse.
Yeah.
We recognize
The
that
on-
substance abuse in our
Yeah, that sounds good.
Is
Yeah,
right.
Okay, I think that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
I have a question about 8. And this is part of Ruben's neighborhood. Because it's the only part of government that would have an influence on mitigation of fire risk within the town. Is this stepping into a different district's purview? Is this stepping into the fire district by saying we're invested in mitigation? Other than through that tree cable that is effective.
Yeah,
and
well, part of the
expensive.
1A money goes to mitigation
Yeah.
at the town level.
And we applied for grants for mitigation projects
Yeah.
in partnership with other agencies.
Yeah, I
So we-
think it is both.
Lead on
And we
that.
manage the force on our properties
Okay.
that aren't associated with
But
electricity.
do we do the mitigation, or we just, so mitigation to me is an opening for expensive government behavior. And so I want to be sensitive to that. in the future as we move on. Fire risk increases.
Maybe we recognize explicitly that primary role of the fire district and say we are proactive in working with the Estes Valley Fire Protection District.
Or we support, mitigate, or we
Mitigation.
some way to be the secondary in this.
Man, but I love the word proactive. That we
Yeah.
have a long discussion about this, about not being reactive to the big projects or issues that come forward, and being proactive with getting ahead of the game.
Yeah, I like it the way it
We
is.
need
I
to
like
keep
it.
proactive. I think.
Mitigation is one of
I
the 5
agree.
foundations of emergency management.
Okay. All good feedback. Thanks.
So something that we'll certainly be cognizant of as we fill out goals and objectives.
Right.
Or would you like the word support versus approach?
No, because it's all an approach.
Okay.
It's all how you.
And how we supply that mitigation might be through the fire district, or with the Forest Service, or with the Watershed
Okay.
Coalition. There are a lot of partners we could go
Maybe.
to.
Or with Boulder County.
Or
'cause of their
utilities, or
slash
Boulder
yard.
County, Lerner County,
That's true. Okay.
and private property owners as well.
Anything else in public safety, health, and environment? No feedback in robust economy that was submitted, but if you have specific feedback, now's a good time. We can fit all of those strategic policy statements on the screen.
I don't have a proposal for any addition, but it seems like we're going to be reviewing the development code in detail, and the development code is a component of a business climate. So I'm not necessarily proposing anything, and maybe it has something to do with the more specifics as we get there. It just seems like it's a lot of what we do as a government is to authorize various real estate related things. So I'm not necessarily suggesting a change. I'm just musing about
Pontificating.
how we deal with it. And maybe it's best not to at this point.
It might be kind of under number 2, the favorable business climate.
Right. And that's what I.
Number 4, instead of recognizing from the side of the street, can we value the importance of a vibrant, attractive, and economically viable downtown?
Yes.
Which will
That's a much better word.
make it a priority for us instead of just a. Let's see.
Good point.
I'm going to find a better way to do that. But before we go into objectives,
Yeah.
I may work in Word and come back
Yeah,
and
you
put
can
it
do
in
it
a
on
spreadsheet
Word
later.
easily. So put it in tables rather than spreadsheets.
I heard Cleve Street.
Go back and
The word Cleve Street. I just,
Hot mic.
some
go back
words
and
I
watch
hear.
the recording, and you'll hear it clear as day.
I heard the word Cleve Street.
Anything else on that?
All right, town financial health. We have one comment on this one, and it's the same comment from the outstanding guest services.
There's
strategic
no
statement.
balancing there.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Which I support when it comes to making financial decisions.
I do too.
Yep.
And I think that you have to holistically look at every single issue that comes before us, and it cannot be just based on the numbers. It has got to balance community values, priorities, trends, whatever. But to commit to being only data-driven decisions, I think, is a shortcoming of having elected people running a community.
In this case, I do like the data advised.
Okay.
Well, are you okay with that?
Mayor, I think you have enough on that one.
Whoa! I'm changing the
Yeah,
world.
all right, you're changing the world.
Just in this case, not all cases.
Yeah, just settle down there.
Yeah, settle down.
Thanks, Mark.
Don't mind me.
It is a little awkward to do this.
It's hard to watch you
Yeah,
too.
you gotta do it.
Yeah, it's hard to be watched. If
One
You could
miss
actually
cliff
just
and
strike
everyone knows.
through and not bother changing the colors.
Anything else on financial health?
3 seems
Only
awful wordy.
3. No, I think it's good.
Transportation, similar comment as the last one on number 5. That was the only written feedback I received before.
At least that one mitigates it with the word consider.
Yes.
So you could probably leave that alone.
I was thinking of on number 3, to incorporate pedestrian, take out the and after traffic, pedestrian and bicycle safety throughout the town.
Multimodal safety.
Or multimodal is fine. We just don't ever, at least in the outcomes, recognize bicycle.
Improve traffic, comma, pedestrian, comma, multimodal safety.
Greg, would multimodal cover all of those things? We could
Yes,
could
it
you,
does. It's a
I mean,
broad term, but if
concisely-
Trustee Youngland wants bicycle specifically recognized,
I would like to have bicycle specifically
Yeah, but you got
recognized.
those skateboards
With
too.
the
and
skateboards.
Scooters. Yeah.
We do have a
And
golf
golf
cart
cart
coming
thing.
up though.
And so
No.
bicycles are not the bicycles they were 5 years ago. Bicycles are the hazard today as they zip by cars because they're not. It's not a bicycle anymore. It's a motorized.
Frank and Cindy are gonna take
I
you
would
It's a
have
whole-
that
That's fine.
conversation.
That's fine because I think that we have to address the other side of that, which is bicycle safety and the impact it has on pedestrians and motorized vehicles.
Well, they should be on the road, not on the sidewalk. So
They should be.
pedestrians shouldn't be in the road.
They should be, and they should also follow the rules instead of zipping in and out
I agree.
as they do now, but they didn't a couple years ago because it didn't exist.
But wait a minute, let me write that. Even motorcycles legally can. Now, tell me, because I see it all the time, makes me crazy. In Colorado, is it legal for motorcycles to zip in and out between cars?
They can lane split now.
Yes. And so,
That's
if
it.
they can, why can't bicycles?
Traffic's got to be stopped.
You have to have
Motorcycle can't
stopped.
go over a certain mile per hour. They can only go
Right.
in front of the lane. There's got to be room in there. There's a lot of rules to do that. So motorcycles cannot do this.
Oh, but they do.
Oh, but the
Right.
bicycles do too. Yeah. So
Right.
I mean, this is a conversation that Tab has had, and it's coming.
We can go with what cars are doing now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, multimodal covers it all. Is that fair?
Yeah.
it would.
So,
Golf
It's-
carts.
It's higher level, a more generic term.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's broader,
We can.
and it misses the point that Trustee Youngland's trying to make, and she wants specific attention called out to bicycles. So.
Well, I might still say that the midpoint would be traffic, pedestrian, and multimodal safety. You know, and I realize that's redundant, but you know, a lot of people when they think multimodal are thinking all of those two-wheeled or one-wheeled or whatever types of stuff.
And pedestrian is part of the multimodal as well.
It is.
Yeah.
You theoretically could just put multimodal.
transit.
If everybody
Yeah.
understands that, then you could
Well,
just use
another
it.
approach, go up to number 1 and just add the word safe. Development of a safe, sustainable, accessible, efficient.
And safe multimodal.
Yeah.
Too. Multimodal, I think, is good too because it incorporates more than just roadways. Somebody made a comment about bicycles in the streets, and we our new sidewalks in the reclamation neighborhood have sharrows on them,
Mhm.
and that's not in the street. So it's
Right.
encouraging bicycles to be on the sidewalk. They're wider and all that stuff, but they're not in the road.
Which I like, yeah. Where in this can we talk about or add in, and Kirby actually brought this up too, but I brought it up before. Right now, we do not allow.
Yeah. So the word efficient takes care of congestion. So yeah, you could eliminate them.
I didn't hear you anyway.
Oh, we talked about the possibility of using golf carts or ATVs, make them street legal. All the other not all the other mountain towns, many other mountain towns do it, and they bring kind of the resident traffic off of the roads. Where in this can we at least talk about this? Is that considered part of the strategic, data-driven?
Multimodal as well.
You know,
I think it would fall in here, and we do have a study session scheduled on that in May 13th, I believe.
So we're going to scratch number 3 then, or completely?
Yeah, because you got it up there up above.
Well, 3 was in there to draw attention to a concern about congestion. And so it becomes diluted a bit and covered under efficient, I guess,
Yeah,
up in number
it
1,
is.
but it's not as pointed.
Yeah.
So
Gee, I wonder what we were
if we
talking
strike
about.
through
Yeah,
the
well, we
piece
know
that
where-
we covered above, then that policy statement would call out specifically, we will address traffic congestion throughout the town.
Do we need it though if we've got efficient up above?
It's just, do we feel like it's important enough to highlight?
right, because if we don't need any of them after the number 1, if we look at it as being.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile leaving in.
Okay.
It's an important thing.
It's
for
a sensitive
everybody.
issue.
I think
over
it's
the years.
different,
Yeah.
yeah, it's different than, in my
Yeah.
opinion, than safe, sustainable.
On number 4, can we consider just dropping the towns?
About parking and.
That
yeah,
we
just
effectively
eliminate
communicate with
the
residents and
towns.
guests about parking and transportation options. Because then we can talk about bus staying and state
Exactly.
highways,
Which we do already.
Private
things
parking
things that aren't.
Private
Private
parking lots that
parking.
we don't, I don't know what we're gonna be advocating on that topic.
But not all transportation options there are.
True. Bus
I
station.
can't even see if there's a shortcut to strike.
Lyft and other things as well.
Probably a combination of
hockey.
keys that does a strike through. I don't remember what it is.
How's everybody feel about that one?
Sure.
That's fine.
Should I pass the cookies around? Does anybody need? You know, we're close to the midpoint. If anybody wants to grab your snacks.
We're almost done. I think.
I mean, midpoint on time. You are correct.
We could spend a lot of time on utility infrastructure.
Oh, we will.
Ruben, why don't you come into the middle here?
Middle.
I get my pads on first.
I'm gonna get some coffee. Anybody want any coffee?
So we did not receive any prior written feedback for utility infrastructure. You'll recall, I think 2 years ago, we broke out this as a specific category because often the utility infrastructure would get buried in public health, safety, and environment, and that section grew very long. So this is intended to really specifically call out our utility infrastructure, so power and communications, including Trailblazer, water, and our storm water system.
On item 2, could we incorporate safety into that in some manner? You know, it kind of relates to the wildfire issue as well as just overall safety with electricity.
So,
Yeah.
That's good.
If you're doing that, you might want to put it in number 1 too. Safety of water services also.
yeah, that will, right. You can have, right.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think you can have high quality water without having safe water. It's good to be very clear.
Pool water.
Yeah, you're right. Pool water.
Travis, Control 5 strikes through.
Control 5?
Yeah.
You're my hero.
I knew it.
Tested it at work.
Just in time
Now
for
you
us to
know.
not have to use it. Someone give me something to strike
He
through.
told
This
Kate
is
an hour
one of
ago
two.
he knew what it was. I said, yeah.
Too.
I'm going to review that recording and find out.
He's been holding it.
Not as bad as the chips.
Anything else on utility infrastructure?
You know, those first two, and those are good. I wouldn't change those. You know, the thing that obviously on number 6 that I immersed in constantly, and it's a very live point of discussion even now as the Board of Commissioners in Larimer considers what permission they're going to give to Flat River Power. You know, I always talk about the 3 aspects and how does the community prioritize when it comes to electricity: dependability, affordability, and movement to green. And obviously people have different opinions on that as to what's number 1. Most people probably are going to agree dependability's number 1, the great majority of people. But whether affordability or movement to green transcends the other becomes
You have to balance that data-driven decision.
Yes, exactly.
Data advised.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to change. It's just it's interesting to see those 4 up there.
Especially with what's in the news.
Yeah.
Right, so there's
Right.
a shift.
What would you think about the insure, change that to provide?
Oh yeah.
In the 3
Yeah.
spots.
Provide.
I'm not really sure what insure means.
Guarantee.
Provided seems clearer.
Sure is your way to get close to when you're dying.
Yeah, that's right. Spoken like a true retiree.
I noticed in here that
I
we
think one more on
addressed,
number 5.
Go ahead, Greg.
sorry, we address water service, we address electric distribution service. Down in 4, we address flood risk, but nowhere do we address stormwater management. And I wonder if we ought to have a number 3 that replicates number 2, and we provide safe, high quality, reliable, sustainable stormwater management service.
That'd be good.
You don't think that's incorporated in mitigating flood risk?
Well, you tell me what
It's
you
too
think
broad.
when you read those 2 terms. You know, I think of flood, when I think of stormwater management, I think of the isolated storm that goes through a neighborhood and floods somebody's garage. When I think of mitigating flood risk, I think of the rivers. So I see a distinction, but, you know, that's just one person's perspective.
Well, we can also be proactive in our approach to mitigating flood and stormwater
I think
risk.
we
I
need
mean,
to have a separate.
I like a
agree with
separate one.
Greg.
okay.
Especially based on how much and how much more we've been in communication with Larimer County and our stormwater master, like all of that.
All that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got to be key.
We're gonna only have a lot of that coming to us.
Good suggestion, Greg.
Are those the right
Sustainable, really?
Those are
adjectives
not the
now?
right adjectives.
Yeah.
I was thinking stormwater management services,
Yeah, it seems like stormwater management.
but infrastructure, that's the bricks and mortar, and the management is
Yeah.
the
Just
philosophy.
everything.
We
and
provide
decision
effective
making
stormwater
and
prioritization.
prioritization.
Management is
I like yours. Say it again.
Which does incorporate infrastructure.
provide effective stormwater
Uh-huh.
management.
Effective.
People. Yeah,
It's not really high quality.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not really sustainable. I mean, it's reliable, but if you do efficient,
effective opens up
Effective.
opportunity
All
to
those adjectives
define it further
Right.
talking
in the
about
subsequent
management.
columns. But
before effective
Yes.
stormwater management.
Maybe just change all those adjectives to
I
effective.
like
that.
service
What?
sustainable.
Change all those adjectives.
Yeah, change it all to
Effective.
effective.
One word is effective.
Change all you've highlighted to effective.
We effectively manage stormwater.
What was that?
Oh yeah, that's good.
What did
We
it say?
effectively
We effectively manage, so that's very action oriented.
Whoa.
What about efficiently too?
I see it as simplified.
Oh, that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And efficiently.
supposed to
Yeah,
make
I
it
like that, and efficiently.
Do we want to add efficient in there as well?
Yeah.
Let's make it really government sounding.
That's
Well,
what-
effective
that's
and
what-
efficient are very different.
They are.
I can bring you the most effective program in the world, and it can be the most inefficient program.
Efficient.
Definitely two different.
It's for the people.
We've got punchy typewriter today.
Whoop. Misspelled.
This is the highest stake typo.
And but what about data driven? So
We effectively,
okay.
efficiently.
Anything else? All right, just a reminder that we don't totally close the door on these when we move into the next phase. But the next phase of this is all of the town staff taking a look at the board's priorities here and building out goals and objectives. Just a reminder, a lot of the goals will likely carry over. There may be some new ones. The only objectives that will carry over are the multi-year objectives, things like the update of the development code. Board members are free to submit suggestions. We welcome public and community input on this. I'll develop a very similar list of all the feedback I get from the board. And so you all will get an email this afternoon with the deadline to get those comments to me and incorporate it into this. It will likely be a more aggressive deadline so that we can get that next phase into the packet material ahead of time so that everybody has a chance to look through it before the day of. We were a little compressed because we had to reschedule our first meeting this year.
Travis, could you also in that email provide how you would like any feedback on these policy statements if we have anything after the jump? Could you just give us some boundaries on what you'd like to see or not like to see, or what would be helpful or unhelpful, maybe?
Give Kirby some boundaries is what she's asking.
And then
I'm not the only one.
Can we also get a copy sent out of
These ones.
Yeah.
well, no, the past goals and objectives.
So what I'll do before I send this out, I'll copy over all the previous goals.
Okay.
And I'll get that out to everybody for consideration, and then it'll morph before the final copy goes out as part of the packet.
Perfect.
Any other inputs or comments? All right, our strategic session is adjourned. I remember the word this time, Kirby. Thanks.
We were efficient this time,
Yeah.
but were we effective?